No food. No backup. Just one man, stranded deep inside enemy territory, hunted by soldiers who wanted him dead. For 7 days, Navy SEAL James Harper fought the impossible, and lived to tell the tale. Studio microphone. This is the untold story of how one SEAL survived behind enemy lines, with nothing but his training, his instincts, and his will to live. Studio microphone. It was 2012, Eastern Afghanistan. A joint US and Afghan operation had gone horribly wrong. A helicopter insertion turned into a disaster after insurgents ambushed the team within minutes. In the chaos, communications broke. Bullets sliced through the trees. And when the dust cleared, SEAL team operator James Harper was missing. Studio microphone. To his unit, he was presumed Kia. But Harper was alive, barely. Day 1, the crash and chaos. Studio microphone. When Harper regained consciousness, it was already dusk. The helicopter wreckage was burning less than a mile away. He was bleeding, disoriented, and completely alone. Studio microphone. His radio was destroyed. His GPS tracker smashed. The enemy, less than 2 kilometers away, was sweeping the valley. Studio microphone. Evade, survive, return home. That's what every SEAL is trained for. Harper dragged himself into the forest, covering his tracks, and began the long, silent crawl toward higher ground. Day 2, the hunt begins. Studio microphone. By sunrise, Harper was 30 hours without food. He knew the enemy would send out patrols with dogs. To survive, he used every trick SEAL training had drilled into him. He moved only during dawn and dusk. Slept under camouflaged branches. Covered his scent with mud and vegetation. Studio microphone. That day, he watched from the shadows as a search convoy passed barely 20 feet from where he lay, breathing through a reed in the mud. Studio microphone. They didn't see him. But Harper could hear them, laughing, calling his name. Studio microphone. That was the moment he realized, no one was coming to save him. Day 4, contact. Studio microphone. At dawn, Harper spotted movement. Not enemy, a local shepherd boy, around 12 years old. Harper hesitated. If the boy alerted the militants, it was over. Studio microphone. But instead, the boy left a small loaf of bread and a canteen of water near a rock, and walked away. Studio microphone. To this day, Harper never learned his name. But that small act may have saved his life. Studio microphone. With renewed strength, Harper climbed toward the northern ridge, where he knew US recon drones might spot him. Day 5, the storm. Studio microphone. By the 5th day, exhaustion hit critical. A storm rolled in, hard wind, freezing rain, and lightning. Harper took shelter in a rock cave, using his torn uniform to block the cold. Studio microphone. That storm, ironically, saved him again. The noise and rain masked his movement from an enemy patrol sweeping the valley floor. Studio microphone. He knew the mountains would be his only hope, but he was out of strength. Day 6, the signal. Studio microphone. Finally, Harper found a ridge overlooking the valley. From his pocket, he pulled out the one working piece of gear he had, a small mirror. Studio microphone. Using sunlight, he began flashing signals in a coded SOS pattern, the same one he'd memorized years ago in BUD/S training. Studio microphone. Hours passed. Then, the distant hum of rotors. Studio microphone. 2 US Black Hawks, scanning the region. But Harper couldn't risk standing up. Instead, he used smoke from burning brushwood. Studio microphone. One pilot noticed the signal flare. Coordinates locked. Extraction incoming. Day 7, extraction. Studio microphone. On the 7th day, Harper heard the sound of salvation. The extraction team landed under heavy fire. Harper, dehydrated and barely conscious, was lifted into the chopper. Studio microphone. His total survival time, 167 hours behind enemy lines. Studio microphone, doctor said his body was running on less than 10% hydration. Yet mentally, Harper was sharper than anyone expected. Studio microphone, when asked how he made it, he said, "They trained me to never die easy." James Harper's story became one of the most studied modern survival cases in naval special warfare history. It proved that mindset, not muscle, is what separates the living from the dead. Studio microphone, behind enemy lines, a man's body may break, but the will to live, that's unkillable. Studio microphone, if you want more real survival stories from US Navy, Marines, and military operations, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the next story might be even more unbelievable.